Despite maintaining proper distance from the vocal mic in the studio, there's an issue that frequently comes up, even with experienced performers and capable engineers at the helm. That problem is known, casually, as P-pops, and inexperienced recordists often make the mistake of letting too many of them creep into a recording. If you've ever done any recording, or any work with a mic for that matter, you've no doubt run into this problem. P-pops are those annoying thumps that happen on certain letters, certain consonants, primarily P and B. The potential problem of persistent P-pops will often plague even experienced performers and studio personnel. And there you have it. That little tongue twister should have clearly illustrated the issue. The technical name for these is plosives. They're the result of blasts of air from the vocalist's mouth hitting and shaking the mic's diaphragm. Unfortunately, no vocalist or mic is really impervious to this. While experienced performers can develop better technique for avoiding those pesky pops, in the heat of performance, they'll still happen occasionally, sometimes more than occasionally. And any mic can suffer from this, although some are more prone to it than others. That's one reason you might want to avoid using a mic that's intended for instrumental use as a vocal mic. Mics designed for vocal applications will probably have a little more protection in the form of their built-in windscreens than mics that are not intended for voice. This is true with stage mics as well. You might remember early on I mentioned that the Shure SM57 and SM58 are really the same mic, except for the extra ball end covering of the latter, due to its intended primary use as a vocal mic. And of course, there'll be some slight effect from that on the mic's frequency response, but it's usually negligible. Studio vocal mics will have had it taken into account in the design of the mic. So how can you deal with plosives? Well, two ways. You can try to prevent them at the source, or you can eliminate them after the fact with editing or processing. Clearly, the best approach is to avoid them in the first place, at the mic. Despite the presence of some degree of protection in the mic itself, that internal windscreen is just that, a windscreen designed more to block rumble from continuous wind and air rather than protect against sudden blasts of air. It does help, but it won't get the job done on its own. The primary line of defense against plosives in the studio is the pop filter, or pop screen, or pop shield, or whatever you call it. These have become almost as iconic an image of studio recording as the mic itself. The screen is some form of mesh, nylon or wire. In the old days, they used to take pantyhose and stretch them out over a wire hanger. It looked really cheesy, but it got the job done. Commercial pop filters are more elegant, including clamps to affix them to the mic stand and a gooseneck arm to facilitate proper positioning. And that positioning should, of course, be between the vocalist and the mic, naturally. The exact distance from the mic is not that critical as long as the vocalist's proper distance is maintained. In fact, the pop screen can be a great aid in enforcing that distance. Many recordists place the pop screen at the distance they want between singer and mic, and then the singer can get right up against the screen while still being at the appropriate distance from the mic itself. Other people may just kind of split the difference, but the pop screen should be able to do its job either way. The screen itself should be virtually transparent acoustically, so you shouldn't need to worry about any negative effect on vocal tone, just its effectiveness preventing plosives. Of course, no solution will work perfectly 100% of the time. If you encounter a real problem situation, even with the screen in place, there are a couple more things you can try to alleviate the issue. Maintaining a little more distance will always help, as long as you can get away with it without room tone or leakage becoming an issue. Another thing to try is to angle the mic slightly away from the singer's mouth. Positioning the mic's diaphragm a little off-axis to the direct source of the blasts of air might result in those blasts passing by the diaphragm or hitting it only glancingly, reducing or eliminating the pops. In fact, slightly off-axis mic placement is common. It can help with other issues as well, like a peaky voice or a spitty singer. But off-axis mic placement will affect the vocal tone, likely sacrificing a little top end and possibly some air along with it. So you'd want to tread lightly with this. Angle the mic a little, try it, and readjust if needed. Make sure the off-axis position still provides the best vocal tone as well as plosive protection before settling on it and hitting record. What if, despite your best efforts, some plosives still make their way into the recording? Well, as I said, you can either edit them out or process them out. Editing is the traditional solution. It's tedious, but it works. You could try automating a high-pass filter, but I find I usually get the best results with the following technique. Locate the plosives. They should be clearly visible in the wave if you zoom in a little. cut the region right at the leading edge of the plosive itself, and then execute a short fade-in over the plosive. The length of the fade-in will be determined by the strength of the plosive. You can do this visually if there's only a few plosives here and there in the recording. If there are a lot of them, you could go through cutting at the beginning of each, and then, once you've determined the optimal fade-in length, quickly apply the fade-ins all at once as a batch process. It's still tedious, but it should be effective. The potential problem of persistent P-pops will often plague even experienced performers and studio personnel. The potential problem of persistent P-pops will often plague even experienced performers and studio personnel. However, if you have the appropriate software, you could apply a fix more efficiently via processing. Some audio repair applications and plugins, like Isotopes RX, offer automatic plosive removal. You just determine the best setting for a particular recording. Here's a dialogue recording that's slightly plagued with plosives. Plosives are P-pops, and then the software does it all for you at the push of a button. Here's a dialogue recording that's slightly plagued with plosives. Plosives are P-pops, assuming that software is available for the session. If not, then editing will have to serve. But once again, by far the best solution is to avoid the problem at the source, with appropriate attention paid to it during the recording phase and the use of a good pop filter and careful mic positioning. I'll get into one more issue or potential mistake involving mic technique in the studio in the next clip.